All right. Well, hopefully you got some good journaling done and got some good intentions there. And especially with that Million Dreams, hopefully with that song, it inspired you to put down some good intentions of what you want to accomplish and what you want to do. Well, I would love to see some people throw in either some of your intentions or your gratitudes in the chat box there. I always appreciate reading those at the end and seeing what you guys had to say. Well, here's what I want to talk about with you today. Today I'm going to share with you, I'm going to give you 5 things that if you want to take your business to the next level, or if you're new and wanting to get your business up and running, I'm going to give you 5 things that you need to do or be prepared for and expect as you are either getting your real estate career going if you're new, or any of you that are not new but that have been in the business for a while. If you want to go to the next level, I'm going to give you 5 things that you should take a look at. And my guess would be, if you're wanting to go to the next level, that some of these things you're probably already doing. But pay attention to see, is there a way that you can improve upon what I'm going to talk about, or add some of these things to what you're currently doing to help you get just a little bit better than what you have been doing. All right, so here we go. So here's the first thing. First thing that I wrote down last night was that number one thing that you've got to do is you have got to be and treat yourself and act like a business owner, not a self-employed person. See, many people come into this business thinking, well, I'm going to go be my own boss and I want to go be self-employed. Well, that's fine. But here's what I have found. If you want your business to go to the next level, you've got to treat it as if you are a business owner and not a self-employed person. See, Robert Kiyosaki, in his book that he wrote, which was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he talked about the cash flow quadrant and how we go from being an employee to self-employed to being a business owner to an investor. Well, see, that's where we need to be, is looking at it as, are we treating ourselves as a self-employed person, or am I treating myself as a business owner? Because if you are acting as a self-employed person, you need to start acting like a business owner. Well, so here's a couple of ideas under that category in terms of being a business owner that I had written down. The first one is you have to actually answer your phone when it rings. See, when you call a business, what happens when you call a business is they actually answer their phone when it rings. And it is amazing in today's world how many people do not answer the phone. I was making some calls yesterday with an agent, and he asked me, actually, he said, hey, you've been in this business for a while. I have to assume and believe that years ago, 20 years ago or so, people actually answered their phone when you called. And I said, oh yeah, big difference. Now, it has changed over the years and people don't. So here's what I'm saying is, for you, make sure that you are answering your phone when it calls. I know one agent, and that this guy, and he's not with our company, but with a company that I was with previously, he was consistently in the top 2 or 3 of the agents in the company over and over and over again. Now, I am not recommending you do what I'm about to say. In fact, I'm not sure that it's a good idea, but the principle behind it is a good idea. And this was it. He actually would answer, if he was on a listing appointment, a listing presentation, he would actually answer his phone if it rang during the listing presentation. And he used it as a way to say to the client, this is how I will treat your house too. When somebody calls me about your house, you can count on that I am going to answer the phone. Now, again, I'm not recommending that you do that during a presentation, but the point being, he knew how important it is to answer the phone. And in fact, when the phone would ring, he would assume that it is money that is calling him, and he wanted to answer the phone to receive that money. So just make sure you're answering the phone. So the second piece of this, of still being a business owner versus a self-employed, is business owners actually call you back. So if you're on that appointment and you don't answer the phone, which again, I'm saying that's probably better than answering it in the middle of a presentation, but actually call people back when they call and leave you a message. Make sure you're doing that. The number one complaint about real estate agents is that we don't return our calls. So make sure that you're returning your calls. Same thing with emails. As you go through your emails, respond to the emails and or delete them. Get rid of them. Don't have this mailbox that's just full of emails. So those are the main things with that. Now, the last one on this, though, on this business owner is this: call your sellers every week. When you list a property, now in today's market, it's probably going to be sold within the week. But if not, make sure you are calling the sellers every single week to give them an update. Was talking with another agent yesterday who has a property that he has listed and has had it listed since, if I remember right, he said March. He listed the property in March and it's now getting multiple offers on it today. Well, guess why it hasn't sold? It was overpriced, obviously, but because he stayed in touch with the seller and kept updating them, they didn't get frustrated and actually pull the listing, which is what happens. Instead, he kept them updated, stayed in touch, got them to slowly reduce the price over the 6 months. And now, as of yesterday, multiple offers that he's gotten in on the property. Now, the ironic side note to that is the multiple offers started coming in as soon as they hit the price he told them 6 months ago they should have been at. All right, so that was number one. Be a business owner, not self-employed. And actually, those of you that are already treating your business like a business owner, your next step, the next level for you is to become the investor. So make sure you're putting money aside so that you can get into the investor category, which would be the next step after what we're talking about. All right, number two, which is related to what we just talked about in being a business owner. So think about this. Everything we're talking about today kind of falls under this envelope of being a business owner. So number two is control your schedule. You have got to make sure you are controlling your schedule. Now, since we were talking about self-employed versus a business owner, the self-employed person has a to-do list. The business owner has a schedule. See, part of the difference between being a business owner and a self-employed person, self-employed people have checklists, to-do lists, but a business owner actually has a schedule that they are going to follow, which I love the way that Earl Nightingale said it, which really I think applies to this in terms of keeping a schedule. Here's what Earl Nightingale said, is the key to being great is to stand on one leg in a hammock and juggle 12 eggs and not break them. See, that's the key to being successful. You got to be able to stand in a hammock on one leg and juggle 12 eggs and not break any of them. Well, here's what I mean by that. When I thought of that quote, what I thought about is this. I watch agents do this all the time, what I'm about to share with you, and that is they have their schedule that is set up. Hey, I know I prospect from 9 to 11 or 9 to noon or 8 to 11 or whatever your schedule is. They have their schedule set up. And then what happens is this. They get an offer in. An offer comes in on their listing, or their buyer wants to write an offer. They throw the schedule out. They immediately go and start negotiating and working on this offer. See, professional business owners do not do that. Instead, they say, here's what's in my schedule. See, here's what I mean. If you had a listing appointment and you got an offer in on a listing you've already got, but you've got a listing appointment, you would never call up that listing appointment and say, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it today because I got an offer in on one of my other listings. I need to go and take care of that. No, you would say, okay, I'm going to go on this listing presentation and then will work on that offer. Well, the same thing goes with your prospecting. See, have a schedule that you are going to follow and treat that schedule as if it's appointments. See, instead of, and I'm guilty of what I'm about to say, instead of saying, hey, so when would you like to get together? Instead of that, say, here's when I have some openings. See, I need to do a better job at that. So like, just know when I'm saying to you today, I'm saying to me, because I need to do a better job of not saying, hey, when would work for you, but instead saying, I've got an opening at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock or 2 o'clock and 5 o'clock, like whatever the time is, but give them two options of here's when I have time available that I could meet with you and go through that presentation or talk to you about what you're looking for in a home, whatever those things are. So that number two is you got to make sure you are controlling your schedule. Now, here's the other thing is most people, when it comes to the schedule, most people, the thing that holds them back from going to the next level is the fear or the stress of, I'm going to get too busy. It's going to, and probably the best way of saying it is the worry of, I'm going to create more stress in my life if I start to do more business. Here's what I will tell you. If you have a schedule and you set it up and will follow it, it will allow you to do more business without more stress because you will be following the schedule. Now, as you start to get to that point is when you then say, okay, I need to hire an assistant to come in and take over some of these other tasks. See, sometimes you're ending up paying you are probably worth $200 to $500 an hour, and you're doing work that you could pay somebody $15 an hour to do. That's when you know it's time to go to the next level by hiring an assistant, is because then it frees you up to not have more stress in your life. So the schedule is the secret to you being able to go to that next level without having more and extra stress, because I know that is what holds most of us back. Is I worry if I do more business, I'm going to get more stress. All right, number 3, the third thing is we need to learn to live with a higher income. So we need to get used to and be ready for a higher income. The book that I love the most that will help you with this is The Magic of Thinking Big. That is probably one of my all-time favorite books. It's in the top 2 or 3 for sure of all the books that I have read, is The Magic of Thinking Big. Like, just love that book because it helps us be willing to think bigger. See, what holds most of us back is we don't think big enough. You are capable of so much more than you actually realize that you are. If you really knew who you are and what you are capable of accomplishing and doing, you would be astounded at how much you are capable of doing. So get that book, The Magic of Thinking Big, and look at it, because we need to learn how to live with that higher income. See, as we learn how to do it, that will allow us now to be able to do that. Now, here's the other side of that, though, is having a higher income also is going to change the way you live and the way you think. See, you're going to change the way that you're thinking. And the thing that I like to look at with this, and I think it was, I think it was probably Jim Rohn that said it, that I remember, but most recently I heard it from Darren Hardy, who I know got it from Jim Rohn, and that is this, is you've got to pay attention to who you are hanging out with, because the people you hang out with control your income. They control your thinking that you have. The thinking that is going on in you is controlled by the people you're hanging out with. So take a look at the people you are hanging out with and figure out, do I need to decrease the amount of time that I'm spending with some of these people? So ultimately, evaluate all of the people you spend your time with during a week and figure out, should I decrease the amount of time I'm spending with them because as a result of hanging out with them spirals me downward? Or do I need to increase the amount of time I spend with them because after meeting with them, I think bigger, I think better? See, if you will get with some of the agents who are producing more than you and talk to them and ask questions of, how did you handle this? And how do I go from here? And where should I go from that? As you do that, it will help you then to think bigger so that you can understand how to do more in the same amount of time. That's ultimately what we are looking to accomplish, right? Is to do more business in the same amount of time with not as much stress. Well, now here's the next piece of this. So I'm still on number 3 of learning to live with a higher income. But the next piece that you need to understand is you are going to be criticized more than you've ever been criticized in the past. As your business starts to increase and you start to do more, the people around you are going to criticize you more than you have ever heard in the past. See, ultimately what happens is people start to tell you you can't or you shouldn't do that. And now the story that I love on this is from Hiram Smith. Now, Hiram Smith was the creator of the Franklin Day Planner. Now, I remember when I was I think I was 20 years old, and I was being introduced to the Franklin Day Planner. And I remember somebody telling me, now I've learned so much since this time, but I remember telling somebody telling me, if you want to be a good leader, there's 2 things you have to do. You have to wear Florsheim shoes and you have to use a Franklin Day Planner. Now, think about what we teach here at Everest. Like, it's so much more than that. It's not what you wear or that you use a Franklin Day Planner. But I remember somebody telling me one day, if you want to be a good leader, you got to use a Franklin Day Planner. So I went and bought one. But Hiram Smith, who was the creator of the Franklin Day Planner, he tells a story about growing up in Hawaii. And this is relevant to being criticized by people. And what he said is, as a kid, he would walk down to the beach in Hawaii. And when he would get down to the beach, he noticed a guy that had a bucket sitting off to the side on the beach, and he was off catching crabs. And every time this guy would catch a crab, he would bring it back and throw it in the bucket. Well, Hiram, as a kid, said to this man, hey, you're throwing those crabs in the bucket, but if you don't put a lid on that bucket, all those crabs will crawl out. And the guy said, not so. Sit there and watch for a minute and see what happens. Well, the guy continued to catch crabs and go throw them in the bucket. Well, as Hiram sat there and watched this guy throwing crabs in the bucket, and he's watching the crabs in the bucket, what he noticed was this. The crabs would try to climb out of the bucket. And every single time there was one crab that would almost make it out of the bucket, another crab would reach up, grab it, and pull it back down. And he said he sat there and watched those crabs for a long, long time, and not one crab ever got out of the bucket, because the other crabs, every time one of them was about to get out, one of the other ones would pull it back down. Well, see, that's what's going to happen to you as you go to the next level. Just plan on and be prepared that you're going to have friends and family saying, well, money's not that important. You're chasing after the wrong thing, and you're not spending enough time with your family, and they're going to do those type of things to try to pull you back down, because they don't want you to do that. And in fact, what they're saying is, if you do that, you won't be who we think you are. And so they're going to try to hold you back. So be prepared as you go through that's what's going to happen. Now, the final point on this one of learning to live with a higher income is a statement from Mahatma Gandhi. And here's what he said. Now, I know you've probably heard it before, but that's okay. I'm going to read it to you again anyway. Here's what he said. First, they ignore you. Then they laugh at you. Then they fight you. Then you win. See, plan on that. That's what's going to happen is early on, as you start to go to the next level, people are just going to ignore you. But then as soon as you start to do it, they're going to start to laugh at you. Then they're going to fight against you, but then you're going to break through and win. So keep in mind. So that's number 3 is learn to live with a higher income. Realize that people are going to probably criticize you, try to hold you back. But as you are persistent and continue on, you're going to get there. All right, number 4. The 4th thing is this. A good portion of your future business is going to come from your database. So if you're going to go to the next level, whatever that is for you, again, if you're a new agent getting started, a good portion of your business needs to come out of your database. Really good agents should typically have 50 to 60% of their business coming out of their database, but some of the top agents will have 80% of their business coming out of their database. See, John Syatt earlier this week talked about the importance of working your database and gave you some really good ideas about how to go through and do that. So my question for you is, since he said that to you on Tuesday, it's now Thursday. What have you done as a result of that? I know of one agent that came and actually said, hey, based on what John talked about, here is a letter that I'm going to send out. Will you read it and see what you think? So now I know there's probably more than that. But my question is, don't worry about if other people are doing it. Are you doing it? What have you done with your SOI since John talked about that on Tuesday? Was it just a good message that you heard on Tuesday? Or did you decide you're going to do something about it? So what will you do today in terms of your database and your sphere of influence? Because if you're going to go to the next level, that's where you want the business to come from. See, that's the business you typically are not having to worry about competing on. Most of the time you're walking in and you're just being given that business. All right, number 5. So the 5th thing that if you are going to get to the next level that you've got to do is you have got to be practicing and role playing what you are doing. And here's what I mean by that. Agents will practice and role play a lot. And the problem is, if you continue to practice it wrong, you guys have heard me talk. I love baseball, and I'm sorry, but I got to talk about baseball in this, because if you get up in baseball and you're a pitcher and you use poor mechanics in pitching, it doesn't matter how much you practice pitching, you're not going to get better. So the same applies to us. See, it's not just practicing the script, meaning, yes, we've got to learn the script. We've got to get those scripts. And whether you like them or not, you follow a script. It's just you have your own script. And unfortunately, again, listening to an agent prospect this week, what happened was this. I listened to him on his script was bouncing all over the place. And it was kind of the same concept. Every single call was all over the place. You've got to have it designed to lead you to an appointment. Your primary objective in prospecting is to set that appointment. And so what we've got to make sure that we are doing is, as we are prospecting or practicing, we've got to be practicing it and making sure that the questions we're asking are leading us to an appointment. And so you need to practice not only understanding what to say, but how you say it. Now, again, I say this all the time, but you look at the actors and actresses that get paid $20, $30 million for reading a script. It's not because they can read the words. It's because of the emotion they create in the audience from reading that script. That's ultimately what we're trying to do, is we are trying to create an experience for the audience that we are either prospecting to, or if you're on a presentation, whether it's a listing or a buyer, we're creating an experience for that person that they enjoy, that they then say, yes, I want to work with this person. Yes, I want to meet with you because you sound like you know what you are doing. You sound like you care about me and helping me. So that's kind of where, I guess, when I'm talking about practicing, and here's the other thing. I just got finished 2 days ago watching the Jazz lose, unfortunately, to the Nuggets. Boo-hoo. That was a sad, sad thing. But here's the thing. Those guys practice over and over again so that when it is game 7, they know exactly how to perform because they have practiced for a game 7. See, that's what I want to know from you. When you are role-playing and practicing, are you doing it in anticipation of game 7 of the World Series? Like, so that when the pressure is on and somebody's throwing something at you, that you know how to take that, they've said, turn it around and use that as a way for you to get an appointment. That's the kind of practice and role play that you need to be doing, is making sure that you are getting so good that, yes, it might be boring for you. In fact, I would say to some extent, that's the way to look at it, is for you, you might feel like, I've said this so many times, but you think about some of the people that are putting on plays on Broadway. They do it 2 times a day, but they're doing it in such a way because they know for you, it's the first time you have seen the play. So they don't get bored and they don't lessen their performance as a result of, well, this is my second time doing it today, so I'm just not going to put as much into it. No. And that's what you have to remember, is the experience you're providing for the people on the other end of the phone, even though you may have said it 40 times already today, they haven't heard it yet today, and so you need to deliver it in such a way. Well, the way that we do that is through practicing. So what are you doing in terms of your practice and role play? All right. Well, here's the question for you. I gave you 5 things that will help you get to the next level. Would love to see in the chat box, what are you going to do about it? Which are you going to implement and change in your business that will allow you to go to that next level? I would love to hear about it. Well, so thank you for being here. If I can help, if you have questions about anything we've talked about, reach out to me. I'd be glad to talk to you a little bit more about it. With that, let's wrap it up. We'll go in and do some closing affirmations, and go make it an outstanding day, and we will talk